What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I recently came across a tweet from a person named Ijoma, and it was a very interesting tweet, and I wanted to hop on and share some of my thoughts about it. And the tweet basically went to the nature of this: the fact that black people are considered the most hated race on the planet and not white people will be forever beyond me. Basically, the person is asserting that from social media, from inputs and feedback from other groups of people they've read, there's a very large negative inference associated with what I would say children of Africa, people of black skin. And obviously, as an African American, I kind of get the gist of what they're talking about. When you look at history and you look at things such as genocides, colonialism, um, when you entire nations efface, ethnic cleansing, a lot of that can be associated with Europeans, right? Whether that's through their oppression, their influence, as I said, colonialism, etc. A lot of this was also spread through war. So what that person is saying is you see all these horrible things come out of the continent of Europe. The fact that you can go on social media, you can see around the world, a lot of negative connotations associated with black people is simply beyond them. And I thought that was an interesting tweet because as a person that studies the world and constantly looking at different cultures and the way different people respond to things, it's really not a big mystery to me. It really isn't a big mystery to me. I don't believe as if uh, African Americans or black people are the most hated in the world, but I do believe there is some type of undesirable energy, um, in large part, attached, and and that's for numerous reasons. And I'll put on some of the key highlights regarding such. One of the main drivers, I believe, that there's this imbalance or maybe there's this negative connotation is one of the most intrinsic characteristics of human society is trade. It is trade. As I study history, as I study geopolitics, one thing you constantly come across, it's insidious at first, but the deeper you get into it, the more you see it's inherent. Not only is it inherent, it is vital. It is vital. And that is trade. The ability of one person to offer something to another person in exchange of something from similar value. This has been the nature of man time immemorial. And many people underestimate this, but it's the sole function. And the ability to do this peacefully has been man's great evolution from savage to civilized. So when you look at this, you'll see that many societies value a relationship with someone based on what they can offer them in return. This isn't greedy, this is just human nature. Trade is as almost as valuable as life itself. And this is one thing to put at the forefront. Malcolm X once said, and I'm paraphrasing a lot in this video, but Malcolm X once said, to raise our children, to be educated by other people, and then go send them into the world to be employed by other people, this can be seen as a criminal act. And, it borderline is. I speak primarily from an African American point of view, but when you have a people, like you can even go back to look at African and European migration and West and Sahelian Africans drowning in mass in the Mediterranean Sea. What are they doing? They're trying to go to Europe to what? To get into the job market. You have a situation where in America, though the highest interracially marriage people from a numbers perspective, driving proportionally speaking is Asian females. The disparity between Black American men, African American men, and African American women are almost double. And especially when you compare that to comparable sizes of Hispanic and Caucasian Americans, that is a large chasm. What that basically means is black men are marrying other races of women without trading off proportionally black women. So other races are competing for fewer women, and those numbers are not being offset by availability of black women for them to marry. So you have a group of people where we're going to other people's school, we're taking other people's jobs, and we're marrying other people women. This creates a lot of negative energy because in a trading society, you cannot be a sole consumer. A sole consumer is synonymous with a parasite. We have to be able, as a group, to give just as much as we take. We need to think about, I always say, if I'm not thinking about how I can provide for myself, my people, and others, I'm part of the problem, right? Because these are what other people are doing. It's okay for a European to give jobs to Africans, but where is the impetus for African or African American to provide jobs for the European? This is what I'm saying. The trade is uneven. And a lot of this has to do with elites. I thoroughly believe culture is driven from the top. But you look at who our elites are. Our elites are entertainers. These are people that get money. And I've not seen in my life a more industrious money-making machine such as American entertainment. Every year, NBA, NFL churns out dozens and dozens of newly found millionaires of African American descent from some of the worst neighborhoods, some of the most impoverished neighborhoods in America. Yet somehow none of this money gets back to the boots on the ground through infrastructure. It's not about putting money in people's pockets, but in building infrastructure to develop those communities or trying to basically nurture the talent in those communities to offset that poverty. It's almost as though their success completely disappears from the community where they come from. And that's the only way you can have these generations on generations and within these cities of people and communities of people not working, people not being industrious, people, and that's going to create a job. People are going to evolve into their environment. That is the human nature, is part of evolution. So you have this situation where the leadership of the community is not invested in the community, it's not nurturing the talent of the community, and in my opinion, is far too comfortable, giving their children away to what they would say is which is the prevailing races of society. In America, that would be the Caucasians. But you send your children to the school, and it's not about money, and that's the biggest thing. It's not about money. It's never about money. If the solution is money, you're asking the wrong question. I always believe that because I've seen impoverished communities. In the world. You look at Japan, post-World War II, 2 atomic bombs. China, look at China now. And they're succeeding in a communist system, one of the worst economic systems you can have in this world. But it's really that underlying culture. And you can say, well, we're oppressed or we've been bothered. Our neighborhoods are not under control. Fair. But at a certain point, you have to have a leader. And if you don't have that leader, you have to be your leader. You have to have leadership, a culture, and a God that gives you the faith in yourself to go out into the world, gain skill sets, and be able to compete with your peers. I look at some people that talks about reparations or going back to Jim Crow segregation as the only way for African American to evolve or to gain affluence. If you need to rig the game to try to have some affluence, you're going down the wrong track because somebody has to be the game rigger. So you're basically making yourself dependent on the game rigger. You need somebody to implement this because you're not implementing it yourself. Because if you can implement it yourself, you wouldn't need to rig the game. You'll be able to compete because you'll be the master of your universe, the leaders of your communities. And this is a very fundamental question. So when other cultures come and they look at, okay, guys, what are you really producing? What are you giving opportunities for other people to, what opportunities are you putting on your plate for other groups and communities to come eat off of. And they say we are constantly bringing the least amount to the table. And despite this, we are everywhere. We are everywhere. There's very few places in the world you're going to go and you're not going to find a person that looks similar to me. If I'm not there, I'm probably next door. So the fact that we're so prevalent and we're not bringing opportunities, only request, hire us, marry us, feed us. This is going to build a resentment. For you can say all you want about European colonialism, but I had a friend from Ghana, and he constantly talked about how they thought it would be better. I don't want to say they wish, but more or less they had hope that Europeans that came to Ghana, because they look at South Africa enviously. They said, look at the level of development in South Africa. South Africa, despite being less than 60 million people, which is not big numbers in Africa, we have countries like Nigeria pushing 200 million, Egypt 100 million, Ethiopia 100 million. You have these large countries and populous countries in Africa. For South Africa to have less than 60 million people and still have one of the largest GDP on the continent, it shows you what happened when you have an industrious group of people that utilize African resources to their maximal potential. South Africa became a beast, and this has been since for decades. So that level of development, centuries, that level of development that South Africa had with infusion, and all communities need infusion. This is why trade is so important. This is why exposure is so important. For you can go learn stuff from other people, put your spin on it, evolve it, and now you can sell it back at a premium to other people because you improved it. So you look at a country like South Africa and you compare it to a country like Ghana, and you see that development gap, and that development gap came from exposure to other communities. So Ghana, they're not going to have the same venom for a European, as maybe even in South Africa. Because of South Africa, I think South Africans know good and well why they're one of the wealthiest countries on the African continent. I don't think that's a mystery. But you got to understand the people that brought that European influence, those early European founders, they went to basically open land. And that's why I say it's not about money. It's about relationships. It's about skills. It's about opportunities, resources such as availability of capital, whether that's through, and not capital by money, but as far as natural resources, land, like as I said, labor. These things matter. Relationships matter. Controlling the market, having a buyer or supplier in the manufacturing process or a processing capacity, those things matter. You can work this out. You can negotiate that out. That ain't got nothing to do with money. Money is the byproduct of all this successful societal infrastructure that we as a community most desperately need to invest much more into and value much more highly. You will see this. Look at how you spend your time. Ask yourself how you spend your time. That'll be the biggest indicator. If you don't understand how racism works, I want you to go find a culture you admire, some people that do something you like, and that they're very successful, right? I'll give you another example. Like, this always pissed me off. This whole tether concept is completely ludicrous, right? Other people of African descent come to America, and we call them out as others or different. We don't try to build a bridge and develop relationships that will help us diversify our ability to invest in our communities. Because now we can say we can access American markets or Western markets, and we can access African markets, or we can build relationships to that bridge in some way. But what we do, we try to ostracize these people. Not we, but there's a certain group of people that try to ostracize these people. Other communities, you know what they do when they have a diaspora? The largest diasporas in the world, the largest remittances in the world are countries such as India or Mexico. Indians and Mexicans come to America, they earn capital. Do they spend it in America? No, they take a portion of that and send it back home to invest in back home. And they don't call their brethren back home tethers. And these are the things that you can really see manifest themselves over time in meaningful ways in economic development of any group. So I really think it was a really great question, but the fact that somebody has to ask this question shows you the gap that we need to cross to understand how this world really works. Nobody is here to provide for us. Nobody's here to feed us. Nobody's here to nurture us. Their affinity to us is related to our ability to produce for them, to provide for them. And then you will see the more we provide, or any group, the more that group provide, the more valuable they'll be seen in the world. And the less that group provide, people are not going to have pity or sympathy. They're going to look at you as a bludgeoner. You're a person coming to take resources that don't contribute. And that's going to create a certain type of animosity between these groups. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. Comment below. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.